first take the chronology of Eisenhower from the end of World War II up until when he's president of the United States. So May 7th in Reims, France, Eisenhower's Supreme Allied Commander, the German field marshals will come to surrender. Nazi Germany is going to surrender to Eisenhower. He is not in the room when they sign. He's in the back room. After they sign the surrender agreement, they are led into Eisenhower, and he points to those German field marshals and tells them, I will personally hold you accountable if you don't adhere to the surrender agreement. Then Eisenhower is going to be in charge of the American occupation zone. So Germany is going to be divided up into 4 zones: Soviet Union, France, the UK, and the United States. So Ike is in charge of the American occupation zone. And his boss in World War II, General Marshall, retires from the U.S. Army. Marshall ultimately will be the Secretary of State. Everybody should be familiar with the Marshall Plan. So President Truman will promote Ike to be the Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army based in the Pentagon. It's the highest rank in the U.S. Army. And Ike is going to stay Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army until January 1948. And in January 1948, he has made plans to leave the Army, take a leave from the Army, and enter academia. He doesn't want to work in private industry, making a lot of money, getting paid a lot of money, very little work, working for defense contractors. So he comes up with the notion that he wants to be a president of a small college. But he gets a call from Columbia University in Manhattan, and Ike will accept the position at Columbia University to be their president. So from January until summer 1948, Ike is going to produce a book. It's his memoirs of World War II. It's called Crusade in Europe. It's still in print today. He takes a cash advance. He needs money. So he will net about $500,000 1948 dollars. So if you go back to Google, enter that, that's about $7 to $8 million.
Wow.
For the first time in Dwight David Eisenhower's life, he has financial security. So he's at Columbia, it's 1950, he's getting a little tired of academia, and he and Mamie start talking about retirement. They've had multiple connections to Gettysburg over the years, and they want to farm. He's got some money in his pocket right now, so the Eisenhowers come to this rundown dairy farm in the fall of 1950. And what they do is they turn around and they look at that view. So everybody just kind of turn around and get an appreciation for the view to the west. Locally, we call that South Mountain. South Mountain is part of the Appalachian chain. That is the selling point of this rundown dairy farm for the Eisenhower. There's 2 other reasons. For those of you who came on the bus, you know what I'm talking about here. You entered the main lane and you just kept going and going and going and going. It's a half a mile from where you enter to the front door of the house. They see privacy. Eisenhower see privacy with that long driveway. And then Ike keeps talking about soil conservation. He just wants to get a piece of land and make the soil better before he dies. So he sees a lot of potential in the farm. So the Eisenhowers signed the contract to buy the farm. Within 2 weeks, everything changes. President Harry Truman will call Eisenhower and offer him to be the first Supreme Commander of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, based in Paris, France, not Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So today, NATO, which is in the news all the time, NATO is based in Brussels, Belgium. So what do you think Eisenhower says to, what's he say? No, he doesn't say no. He says, yes, sir, Mr. President. And he puts the uniform on with the 5 stars. We've only had 5 5-star generals in American history. So he puts on the uniform, takes a leave, an extended leave of absence from Columbia University, and finds a brigadier general, a good friend of his, Art Nevins, and his wife Ann, to move into the old farmhouse to be his farm manager. And then Ike and Mamie head off to Paris. When he's in Paris, the recruiting by both political parties to run for president continues. Ike always said he did not seek the presidency was seeking him. So he wins in 1952. After his presidential inauguration, so January 20th, 1953, Ike and Mamie decide it's time to deal with this dairy farm that they bought in Gettysburg almost 3 years ago. So the Eisenhowers hire a contractor. Contractor looks over the old farmhouse. And keep in mind, the old farmhouse appeared to be solid red brick, 2,000 square feet, typical Gettysburg farmhouse. And the contractor comes back and tells the Eisenhowers, your house is much older than you think and it's ready to fall down. So it turns out that most of the brick was a veneer covering up a log cabin that dated back to around 1750. And over time, moisture had built up, termites, the old house is ready to fall down. So the Eisenhower salvaged one small piece of the original farmhouse, and that's that piece with the rough-looking bricks, 2 eyebrow windows between the downspouts. Everybody see that? Okay, that's the piece that they salvaged.
Where is it?
The log house, the log cabin was torn down. Now they did salvage some wood from the log cabin. When you see Ike's den, when you go through the his den, you're going to see beautiful wood floor, beams on the ceiling, fireplace, a wooden fireplace mantle. All that was salvaged from the log cabin. So then what the Eisenhowers do is they build a brand new house around that one piece. So this stone may look older to you, but that's new construction to the right. And then from that downspout over, new construction to the left. You can tell the age of the bricks. Those bricks were cut by hand. They're very crude, very rough looking. And then you can see the smoother bricks, which were cut by a machine. They painted white to blend the old with the new. Now, during this construction phase, the Eisenhowers on Friday afternoon, they head out to Camp David. Everybody heard of Camp David?
Yes.
Named for his grandson, David Eisenhower. Also his father, his name was David Eisenhower. And if you're not aware, David Eisenhower married Nixon's second daughter, Julie Nixon. They're 74 years old this year, still alive. Okay, so 20 miles directly south of here is Camp David. It's that close. We're only about 7 miles from the Maryland border. So during this construction phase, the first 2 years of the Eisenhower presidency, the Eisenhowers go to Camp David most weekends to relax. Once this is finished, by March of 1955, the Eisenhowers will travel the extra 20 miles. No, they're not driving, the Secret Service is driving. And they're going to drive the extra 20 miles to be in the only house that they ever owned. This is the only house they ever owned. And keep in mind, when they're at Camp David, the bed they're sleeping in, all the furniture is government furniture. When they're in the White House, they have some personal effects, but most of the furniture is government furniture. When they enter this house here, this is their stuff. This gives Mamie a chance to finally get stuff out of boxes and put it in her farmhouse. So the Eisenhowers start coming here almost every weekend. In the next 6 years of his presidency, we calculated that he was here for 1 full year. The main purpose of coming to the farm is to relax. Ike is a man of many hobbies. He's got golf, played over 400 rounds. He paints. He likes bridge. He likes his grandchildren. He likes black Angus show cows. He likes to fly fish. He likes to shoot ski. He's got a lot of hobbies. Also, he comes to recover. Some of you may remember he had a massive heart attack in September 1955 as the sitting president of the United States. After spending 7 weeks in the hospital, he comes to Gettysburg to recover. So this is also the place for recovery. In addition to the heart attack, he had a minor stroke and he had abdominal surgery. And then he starts using this farm as a place to conduct foreign policy. He brings 7 world leaders. So in 1957, he's the first president to fly by helicopter. From the White House to where the helicopters landed in the field, it's a 30-minute flight. It would take 2 hours by car to get out of here. Now he can get here in 30 minutes. From Camp David to here, it's only a 10-minute flight. So Ike starts bringing these world leaders to the farm. Nikita Khrushchev of the Soviet Union is the most famous one. It gives Ike a chance to do one-on-one diplomacy. He sees people in a very different light. The stereotype of Khrushchev is that he's a nut job. He's irrational. That's not what Ike sees. This one-on-one gives Ike a whole new perspective on Nikita Khrushchev. So, January 20th, 1961. That's the inauguration of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Following the inaugural lunch, the Eisenhowers will travel in a snowstorm to the place that they love in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. This becomes the retirement home. They do spend a few months every year at Palm Desert, California. And then in 1967, of sound mind and body, the Eisenhowers donate this farm to the National Park Service with the intent he's going to continue living here. Mamie's going to transition out within 6 months of his death. After Ike dies, Mamie doesn't want to leave. She wants to stay at the farm. The National Park Service is not going to chase her out. So Mamie lives here until September 1979. She had a stroke. She ends up at Walter Reed Army Hospital. Now, when she died, everything on the property was settled except for what you're going to see inside, the furniture, the contents of the house. And John Eisenhower, the father of the 4 Eisenhower grandchildren, their only child who makes it to adulthood, he inherited everything inside the house. And he wants to protect his parents' legacy. He's a published historian by that time. So he donates most of what was in the house to the National Park Service. Some of the nicer pieces he puts on loan to the National Park Service. Eventually money will be raised to give him a nice check. The family took very little out of the house. So we're making the claim that 98% of what you see inside is authentic Eisenhower. This is the real stuff.